This is Decision 2024, the first of our debate series planned for this year's election season. Today, we're focused on the Republican primary for the New York State 100th Assembly District. I'm Mike Sakell, News Director for Catskills News. I'd also like to thank our news partner, Mid-Hudson News, which will provide you an opportunity to hear from our Republican Assembly candidates on a number of platforms, including Catskills News Talk 92.5 and 94.9, as well as 1240 a.m., plus Mid-Hudson News YouTube channel and the Catskills News podcast. Both candidates have been provided with a format for Decision 2024's debate, and we are ready to begin what I hope will be a spirited, informative, and civil debate on some of the issues facing local voters. The format consisting of 4 segments with 4 questions each. Candidates will have up to 2 minutes to respond, followed by a minute for a rebuttal from the opposing candidate. There are opening and closing statements with each candidate allotted up to 2 minutes for each. A reminder that early voting begins next week for the New York State primary that's scheduled for June 25th. Our 2 Republican candidates eyeing for the state assembly seat in the 100th district that's being vacated by longtime Assemblywoman Aileen Gunther. One Democrat, Paula Elaine Kay, is set for the November election. The Sullivan County Republican Committee has endorsed Camille O'Brien, while the Town of Wallkill and City of Middletown Republican committees have endorsed Lou Ingrassia, Jr. Each candidate now has a 2-minute opening statement, and by coin toss just prior to the debate, Camille O'Brien is first with a 2-minute opening statement. Camille?
I'm Camille O'Brien, and I'm running for state assembly. And I'm running because things need to change in this state. Prices of gas, groceries, childcare has gotten outrageous. And it's like a slap in the face to the hardworking people of New York to see billions of dollars go to New York City to pretty much try and rectify a self-made problem. And rural New York is here. We pay tax dollars too. So to see social workers, teachers have to pick up second jobs to make ends meet is ridiculous. So I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and get to work to change New York State.
Very good. Thank you, Camille O'Brien. Lou Ingrassia, Jr., your opening statement.
Good afternoon. I'd like to thank Catskill News, Mid-Hudson News for hosting this debate. I think it's good. I think it's part of our democratic process. My name is Lou Ingrassia, Jr. I'm a candidate for the 100th Assembly District. My platform for running is common sense. We need to restore common sense to our government. We need to have the ability to be able to interact. We have to have the ability to be able to converse. We have the ability to solve problems collectively together. The way the state system runs right now is that we have a Democratic majority that basically forces the Republicans in the minority to negotiate in hallways, to negotiate in stairwells, and nothing good comes out of that. I've had a lifetime of volunteer experience. I've spent my entire adult life volunteering in my community. I've been a Republican for 40 years. Happily married, 30 years, 2 children, have a career at the Town of Wallkill. I'm currently the Commissioner of Public Works there. I started in 1986 as a laborer, and I've spent a lifetime helping people, solving problems, doing good for others. And I can plan, my goal is to plan to continue that in the 100th Assembly District. I think it's needed. I think we need people on the street that are willing to work hard to solve problems. Are we going to solve all the problems that are out there? Probably not. Are we going to make promises to you that we can't keep? Absolutely not. But what I can tell you what we're going to do is we're going to have a good, lively discussion. We're going to be able to pick the best candidate through this debate process, and I'm looking forward to it, and I want to thank you for hosting it.
Thank you, Lou. And Lou, you will get the first question, and we have some introductory questions concerning both of you. What's unique about this debate in some ways is that this is a primary. So we are both looking at 2 candidates who are on the Republican ticket. The question would be, what makes you the Republican best suited to defeat the Democratic nominee, Paula Kay, and flip the seat in November? Lou?
Well, as a lifelong Republican, at the age of 18, I joined the Republican Party, so I've spent 40 years as a Republican. I've spent 25 years on the Town of Wallkill Republican Committee. I believe in a lot of Republican ideals, conservative ideals. I feel that my background, I feel that my family history, I feel that my experience is going to lend better as the better candidate in this debate, or in this race, I should say. I've known Camille O'Brien for a number of years. We have a friendship from some of the previous folks she worked with. But at the end of the day, I think we both want some of the similar ideas. I think we may have different ideas of how to get there. But like I said, I feel with my background, with my history, with my lifetime of public service and volunteerism, I can take my skill set into Albany and I can utilize it in the best manner possible. I have a very good knack of talking with people. I have a very good knack of interacting with folks. People that I've just met, I like to treat as friends. I have a background. One of my things that I say is when I meet somebody, I like to make people smile. And I think that's most important, is that you can have an open dialogue. You could talk with people. You could knock on doors. You could get your information out. You could be able to go in and say, listen, let's listen to an alternative option, an alternative opinion. And I've spent a lifetime doing that. And that's what I'm looking forward to keep doing that.
Camille O'Brien, you have a 1-minute rebuttal on the same question regarding what makes you the Republican that's best suited to defeat our current Democratic nominee.
Thanks, Mike. So what makes me the best candidate? As Lou alluded to, I did work for Senator Martucci, where not only did I work in the office, but I actually sat in almost every town hall in the entire district and ran the mobile office hours, where I listened to constituents, I talked to the clerks and supervisors, I've attended the town board meetings, and become very familiar with the issues in this specific district. In continuing my work in the Senate for Senator Oberacker, I've also picked up employment by the County of Sullivan, where I'm the coordinator for the Drug Task Force, where I've gotten on the street. We talk about the hotels where a lot of these people are staying. I've been in those hotels, and I've gone to the doors, and I've talked to people there, and I see what's going on. I've worked in the Department of Community Services, where I work with these social workers and counselors, and I'm on the front lines. And I think that's what makes me a very interesting candidate in this.
Well, and Camille, you get the next question.
Mm-hmm.
And that is regarding what I would define as a traditional Republican. I mean, would you consider yourself a Republican who's focused on the issue of being a fiscal conservative? How would you describe your position as it pertains to state spending?
I would consider myself a fiscal conservative. Having gone to SUNY Orange for accounting and later studied business and law at a CUNY University, I'm very fiscally conscious. I've looked at the budgets that New York State has put out. Actually, on the release of some budgets, I've spent all night reviewing them to be able to make commentary specifically on them. So I would consider myself a fiscal conservative. And, you know, I've consciously made this decision to run as a Republican because things need to change in our state. This Democratic majority needs to change in order for a lot of these issues to come back to conversation. Because right now the majority is too great. The conversation isn't happening. Rural New York is getting steamrolled. So we need to flip some of these seats to have that conversation again.
And Lou, rebuttal, a 1-minute rebuttal to that same question?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Lifelong Republican, fiscal conservative. Bought my first piece of property on our family farm in 1986. I built my house in 1993. I've been paying school taxes for 30 years. I've been paying property tax for 30 years. I know what it's like to live on an income where both people have to work and raise 2 children. What I see is I don't like the issue of throwing money after problems. I like the issue of taking money and solving problems. And I think that's what the Republican ideal is. Be fiscal conservative, but get the best bang for your buck and ultimately solve a problem by putting money towards a problem, not just throwing money at problems, which is not working right now. But again, like I said, I've been paying school taxes for 30 years. I feel the pain. I've been paying property taxes for close to 40 years. And I honestly feel that I am best suited. I feel that I follow all the Republican ideals. That's what I've done my whole life, and I'm going to continue to do.
Well, Lou, we're going to stick with you for the following question, which is really drilling down on the same topic. There is a potential budget deficit now looming for New York State, especially after the recently passed state budget. So over the last few years, there's always been talk about raising taxes on high-income earners. What's your position on that?
Well, I think what happens is, a lot of times success breeds contempt. And I don't know if that raising taxes on high income earners is the actual answer. I think the answer is better suited to take the money that's out there, take the tax revenue that's raised, and to use a better process of distributing that. Okay, I know, some towns, some cities, they rely on sales tax and things like that. We have a property tax issue, we have a school tax issue. We were promised 40 years ago that every nickel from the lottery was going to go to our schools. We certainly didn't see that happen. We're taking money in literally buckets of money, and we're sending it to the urban areas of the state, and we're just throwing money at projects that are not feasible and are not getting done. My history in the town of Walk Hill, we've had an amazing history as the DPW commissioner there of getting grants, specifically in the water sewer infrastructure world. There's tons of money that's sitting out there that has been quote unquote earmarked for years for projects that has never been spent, to the point where we were able to go back and say, hey, listen, the neighboring town, they got a couple $100,000 to do a project. They couldn't get out of their own way. How do we get that money to come in and, build something in our town and I think that's what we need to continue to do. The property tax system needs to be investigated. But again, I don't think it's about putting the burden on an individual group of folks. I'm certainly not in the 1 or 2% of the high property tax people that they're looking to get more money out of. That's for sure. But I think that there's a much bigger discussion than just saying let's tax the rich. I don't think that is the answer.
Camille, 1 minute rebuttal, same question regarding high income earners.
Absolutely. Well, with one of the biggest budgets in the country for a state, I don't think we need to be bringing in more tax dollars. I think we need to be spending them more efficiently. To look at all the agencies in New York State, it's too big. We need to shrink down our government and make it more efficient so it's actually responsive. Taking a lot of constituent issues in the Senate offices to try and navigate the system is very difficult, and a lot of the time spent with constituents is helping them navigate the system that's like a maze. And it, not to be punny, but it's amazing how big the government has gotten. So I think we need to look at spending more efficiently and making it more responsive to constituent needs and help our communities.
Well, and a related follow-up question to some points regarding budgets and taxes and all, and this question goes to you, Camille. Do you have specific plans to decrease the tax burden, especially for property owners?
Again, I'm going to sound like a broken record saying this today, but we need to be spending more efficiently. There's plenty of money in the budget. It's just not going to the right places. And, I'm not sure if anybody's heard this before, but the Democratic majority has a big thumb on the scales of where those tax dollars go. And I don't believe our district is getting back the dollars that we put into the state. Our own tax dollars are getting weaponized against us. So in a place where we need more resources, it's not looking to bring in more tax dollars to be able to provide those resources. It's redistributing where those tax dollars are going in our state. And right now they're flowing pretty heavily to the urban areas, and rural New York is getting forgotten.
And Lou, rebuttal to that, property tax burden, any ideas as to how to alleviate something?
Well,
like
again, as a property owner, for 40 years, I understand the property tax burden. I think what needs to happen is we need to take a good look. We need to see where our property taxes are. Okay, we instituted a 2% tax cap a number of years ago. So what'll happen is they go to the 2% just every time, whether you need to or not. I think a lot of government agencies that are out there are sitting on an abundance of surplus monies that they're sitting on for a long time, and they always say, well, let's return it to the taxpayer. I think what they should better do is we should see what kind of surpluses are out there, utilize those surpluses for different projects and things like that, and then just reevaluate where we're at. We're going to tax our people out of here. One of the things I said is that, Kathy Hochul and the Democratic majority, they've been the best advertisement for U-Haul and budget that's out there. People are leaving in droves, and we definitely need to redistribute money and, let's utilize our surpluses accordingly.
We're going to move into our next segment. We're going to focus a little on healthcare-related issues, and we'll start with you, Camille. First question, as a member of the Assembly, you'd be tasked with, of course, securing capital aid for your district. What do you think are some of the key areas that you'd focus on?
Well, going to my experience as a coordinator for the Drug Task Force, Sullivan County has had one of the highest overdose rates in the state, and New York State is one of the highest in the country. So one of the first things I would go towards is to bring resources. And you know what? We need our recovery resources, but also in general, Sullivan County needs a lot of health resources. Our hospital's been in trouble. There's a different reimbursement rate for Sullivan County over Orange County. The line drives through. So when providers come here, they look at that and they hop right back over the border, leaving us in a medical desert. So to wait months for appointments is ridiculous. So I think our capital funding would need to go to hospitals, to providers, and also incentives to bring in more providers. And, you know, this may be crossing lines, but everything's intertwined. That comes down to housing. We have a housing issue. So we need places for these professionals to live if we want them to come work here. So there's a lot of issues here in Sullivan County, and a lot of them are intertwined, from substance use to housing to our hospitals to our medical providers overall.
And Lou, rebuttal, same question regarding capital aid and maybe some of the key issues that you would be focused on.
Absolutely. So as the Commissioner of Public Works of the town of Wallkill, prior to that, 2008, I was the Water and Sewer Superintendent. And what happened was between 2008 and 2011, we built the first new hospital in New York State in over 20 years, what is now the Garnett Medical Center. In the town of Wallkill, we created a medical corridor. We had a public-private partnership to be able to do infrastructure improvements, provide a corridor where people could come. The same thing here in Sullivan County in the more rural areas. That can be done. You have to take the healthcare to where the people are at. You can't bring the people to the healthcare. It becomes cost prohibitive. We end up spending money on Medicabs and things like that. And what could happen is we could sit down, we could talk collaboratively with people in the industry and say, listen, we need better health care in our rural areas. And I think there is an opportunity to make that happen. And like I said, when my experience at Wallkill, when we built the medical corridor, I've been there, I've done it, and I'm willing to do it again.
Well, and Lou, I'll follow up with you with the next question. And I know we've spoken already, touched upon the drug crisis. It's an important issue impacting our state. So as a member of the Assembly in the 100th District now, how would you allocate resources to both protect citizens from crime associated with drug distribution, as well as making treatment available to those who are in need?
Well, I think what needs to be done, again, dialogue, okay? Several years ago, we were one of the, I don't know if you want to say a charter member in the town of Wallkill of the Hope Not Handcuffs project, which has grown and has gone very well. What needs to happen is, once again, we need to be able to take our young people, find out where we're losing them. Let's provide resources for them. Let's provide areas where they can recreate. Let's get them off the streets and get them into community-type based programs that's going to prevent them from going down that rabbit hole of drug abuse. However, it is a problem. Any person that's out there that says it hasn't negatively affected their own family, they're living in the dark. They really are. So what could happen, again, from a government standpoint, the government could come in, and I'm not about overreaching government. What I'm about is taking government resources and putting them in the right place. One of the things I've heard already when I've been on the street in this Monticello, in Monticello, there's no place for kids to congregate, okay? In the town of Wallkill, once again, all my experience, we built the Boys and Girls Club headquarters at Circleville Park. We built a 7,500 square foot recreation center. We made a place where kids could go before school, after school, things like that. So number one, let's start when they're young, okay? And then secondly to that, when we do, find individuals that need help, let's get them the help. Let's remove the stereotype. That is the problem. There's a stereotype where people say, doesn't happen to me, doesn't happen to my family, doesn't happen to my kids. That's nonsense. What we need to do is create open dialogue. We need to provide professional resources. And again, we need to take those resources to where the people are at. And just like in communities right here in Liberty, Monticello, all the areas, take the resources to the people. Open up the doors and say, we're here to help you. What can we do to help?
And Camille, rebuttal drug crisis, again, looking at protecting citizens from crime associated with, drugs, as well as treatment options available to the public.
Absolutely. So when it comes to resources that go to the opioid crisis and the drug crisis, It's similar to the way we're distributing opioid settlement funds right now, and that comes through the Drug Task Force, which I sit on, and that goes through our pillars to an assortment of prevention, also to our sheriff's office. They help with our drug takebacks, because a lot of times there's prescription drugs in people's houses. We need to get those out of there. And I actually already have been part of conversations to bring after-school programs to a few of the high schools. I've sat with some superintendents. We're working on that. And, it's just bringing more resources, because Sullivan County is unique that the coalition we have, everybody's been working together. To see the people around the table that came for our discussion last Friday about an overdose fatality review, to really look at the data that's coming in and review deep dives, that's where we want to put the resources.
Well, Camille, we're staying with you on this round, talking about another issue that, of course, is getting a lot of attention. State money in this year's budget being allocated to better access mental health professionals, particularly in our schools. And are you confident in this initiative, and what would you suppose what would your approach be to in the state assembly if you were to be in the state assembly moving forward in terms of mental health?
Absolutely. So, sometimes the messenger matters. And working on the drug task force and working on prevention, with mental health, a lot of times I speak from experience. So being a child whose mother passed away when I was 16 and not having those resources, I saw what that felt like. So I've actually gone to the redirectional high school in Monticello and sat with those kids and talked about my experiences and used that as prevention and let them talk openly with somebody that's been through it. We do have a mental health crisis in this country. And a lot of times, these substance use issues are based in trauma, grief, and other mental health issues. So you know what? To get these mental health resources in our schools and start early and give these kids the tools they need to overcome life's problems and not try to escape through drugs and alcohol and face life on life's terms, I think that should be a terrific priority. And, I'm not ashamed to talk from experience. Having a couple of years sober now, I've been able to talk to people. I sit on drug court, and to be able to take them aside and talk about my journey to sobriety and help them through theirs, I think it does make a difference. And that's where having a shortage of peers in our county and with our providers, that's somewhere else that we're lacking. And that comes down to some stigma. Sometimes people don't want to be the face of recovery. But people that are trying to seek it and want hope, they like to see people that have actually achieved recovery and are doing well. So I think mental health resources are a huge thing for kids and adults in our county. And, speaking from experience, I look forward to standing up in the assembly and talking to that.
And Lou, your rebuttal regarding mental health and particularly the allocation in the budget currently, do you think that that this initiative is enough? What would your approach be?
Well, I would say probably enough is never enough. As the husband of an educator, my wife is a special ed educator, Middletown High School. My son is a fifth grade teacher in Watertown. My daughter is first grade special ed in the city of Middletown School District. In the town of Walkill, we have 5 school districts. What I hear at my dinner table is that there's not enough resources in a school. There's not enough school psychologists. They pull one psychologist from 2 different schools, things like that. Once again, we need to start when they're young. We need to start when they're young. We need to put core principles back out there. We need to have resources in the school that they need. We need to make those resources available, not spread them too thin. And at the end of the day, hopefully that will prevent any future issues that are out there. The issues that are out there now, once again, let's see what the bang for our buck is. Where is the money going? Where are we spending it? And what is the result? And is it result driven? What do the statistics show? That's what we really need to check out.
And Lou, we're going to stick with you, talking a little bit on, you touched upon the subject of, medical facilities, healthcare costs have been burdening New York State's taxpayer. Many systems actually within the district and beyond are being financially stressed. So the question is, how do you fix the problem on the state level as a member of the assembly? What's your feeling about state Medicaid allocations and other allocations to make the healthcare system better?
Well, one of the first things I would do is find out, okay, who are these insurance companies? Who are they lobbying? And who's making the decisions where the money goes? Again, let's take the money that's allocated. Let's put the money towards health care. Let's put it towards the people that need health care. Let's stop padding the pockets of the insurance companies. What insurance companies, if they're not based in New York? What return are they giving on their investment in New York? Things like that. What's going to happen is you're going to find out that probably way too high majority of the costs or the monies that are allocated are going to some type of administrative cost instead of putting the money on the street and putting the money into the healthcare facilities where they need to be. Again, we built an entire medical corridor in the town of Walker. We sat down with the owners of the big three at the time, the big healthcare providers, and said, okay, you want to locate in our town, you want to have this kind of break, you want to have a tax break, you want to sit down with the IDA, what are you going to return? What's the return on the town investment? And we had very good luck with that, and that's how we were able to build it. When we get back to the state level, again, a much more global problem. But as a state representative, you have a seat at the table. You're able to walk into the executive or the CEO of one of these insurance companies and say, hey, listen, what are you doing in New York? What are you providing for our people? And where is our money going? From the state level, when they're taking Medicaid money, things like that, what needs to happen again? Find out where the money is going. Is it being spent on patient care? Is it being spent on facilities? Is it being spent on administration? And let's put it back to where it's going to do the best that it can for the people that need the health care and the people that need the help.
And Camille, your rebuttal regarding overall health care costs and really some of the burden on the medical community right now. How would you approach that as a member of the Assembly?
Absolutely. Well, the first thing I would do would be to reassess the Medicaid reimbursement formula. It's outdated. It's based on data from 10, 15 years ago. We need to take a look at that so we can incentivize providers to actually come up to Sullivan County. And, we don't have a rich tax base. We don't have as many people as Orange County does. So there isn't as much funding from the county or towns to build a new hospital and to have that investment to even get a return on. So based on that, I think the first thing we can do is look at that formula. But a whole other issue that we actually haven't touched on yet is the cost of prescription medications. And that, to an extent, is the insurance companies. But something that a lot of people don't know about is something called pharmacy benefit managers, are actually a middleman that takes from both sides, and it's killing our private pharmacies. I've talked to a lot of local owners, and that's something we really need to take a look at.
Well, we're going to move on to the next segment, and another one that's focused on a key issue, infrastructure and, of course, housing, as well as a bit on the environment. The issue, of course, being described as a crisis in our state, and I guess there are many crises, is housing. The new state budget aiming to increase housing supply through tax incentives and exemptions. The question to you, Camille, is how effective do you think these measures are in addressing the crisis within the 100th Assembly District?
I think incentives actually are pretty effective. We saw that with 421A, which expired a couple of years ago, was an incentive for mixed housing. So it wasn't completely focused on low-income affordable housing. It wasn't completely focused on high-income housing. It was a mix of the two, and the incentive was based on having both in a development. And, again, it comes back to our planning and zoning boards. I know a lot of towns are looking at their plans right now that haven't been updated, and, some of them since the early 2000s, which was before Bethel Woods existed, before a lot of things existed in Sullivan County, and there's been a lot of changes through COVID. So coming back to those planning and zoning boards, home rule is a big thing. And, the state shouldn't be working top down and telling people where to put housing. But we do need a plan on where would be the soundest to keep Sullivan County and the character that it enjoys and it's known for. So we want to make sure we have rural spaces and we have the infrastructure planning. Some towns can't even offer water and sewer right now with new development. So, it's a planning process, and that's something that we need to bring local communities to the table. Just this past weekend, I actually went to the Comprehensive Planning Open House over at Bethel, where they invited all the citizens of Bethel in, and they gave them little clipboards and stickers, and they were able to vote for what they thought was most important in the planning of their town. And this is just the first of many meetings, but I thought that was a great event, bringing everybody together, because a lot of these are concerns. And people want to be heard, and to give them the opportunity to be heard and tell the town board themselves what they want to see. I thought that was fantastic, and I think that's something that can be replicated around the county and should be replicated around the state.
And Lou, same question on housing. The question is, how effective do you think the current measures are in addressing the crisis within your district, the 100th Assembly District?
Well, again, infrastructure, my wheelhouse, water, sewer, highways, things like that. And what happens there is you do smart planning, zoning. I've been dealing with our planning and zoning board for over 20 years at different levels. And what you need to do is you need to provide the infrastructure and put the infrastructure into place where the housing needs to be. We have done a tremendous amount of, again, public-private partnerships, and that's where it needs to be. At the end of the day, the big builders that are going to come in, they're going to build where you tell them to build. They're going to build where the water and sewer infrastructure is. I'm a New York State licensed water plant operator. I'm a New York State licensed sewer plant operator. I've got a lifetime of experience doing that. The big thing is to make sure that you come in, you put the right resources in the right place, the right infrastructure in the right place, and then your housing can drive from there. And if you have areas that are devout of housing, well, then let's look at those areas. Let's see where we can extend it and do it smart and do it right and do it correctly.
Well, and Lou, you get the next question. It is, in fact, targeting infrastructure. It's definitely something that affects local communities. Now, the latest budget replaced some of the millions of dollars of the Consolidated Local Street and Highway Improvement Program, the CHIPS program, that the governor was actually looking to, remove or rework. Do you feel the current allocation for infrastructure is sufficient at the spending level? Would you do anything different?
Absolutely not. Would I do anything different? Absolutely. Is it sufficient? Absolutely not. So I've spent the past 12 years, every March, first Wednesday of March, going to Albany, lobbying for CHIPS money as the DPW Commissioner Walkill, as the president of the Orange County Highway Superintendents Association. We actually started this past March at Assemblywoman Gunther's office on a Friday morning, and we ended up in Albany on a Wednesday. There's a formula out there. The formula that's out there, it doesn't work. It just doesn't. And every year what happens, it becomes a game. It becomes a shell game where the majority or the governor says they're going to pull 100,000 or 100 million out of CHIPS. We're going to put it back in. And then what happens is come, the end of March, they give you a warm fuzzy and they say, oh, well, we gave you all your money back. The money was there to begin with, okay? The CHIPS allocation, I'm more familiar with how that works. What has happened over the years with CHIPS, they've opened it up where you can spend the money on other things, and you can spend the money on equipment, you can spend the money on trucks, you can spend the money on, a whole multitude of things is not what it was originally designed for. My own included. Take a ride around the roads in the district. We know that they're crumbling. We know that there's problems. They'll hit you with, well, it hasn't been a rough winter. No, the winter was the roughest when it goes hot, cold, freeze, thaw, things like that. So again, I've spent half of my career working on that allocation, lobbying for that allocation, and basically what happens is you go up there, you put your orange shirt on, they give you a warm fuzzy, they say they're going to give you the money back. It was our money to begin with. So you know what? Let's sit down. Let's decide who needs it. Let's decide who spends it. Again, they allocate CHIP monies to municipalities that based on management or whatever the cause is, politics, they don't even spend their CHIPS money. So let's see who has a good reputation of spending the money. Let's put the money where it is. Let's get the best bang for our buck. And I'm more than familiar with that program.
And Camille, your rebuttal regarding infrastructure, do you feel that the current allocation for infrastructure is sufficient at the current spending level? With the state budget, CHIPS, of course, included. Would you do anything different?
I would do things different. And CHIPS is a great example of these formulas that are made to be confusing so people don't understand how it works. We see that actually with the education aid formulas as well. And going back to the Medicaid reimbursement formulas, there are all these formulas that, I hate to say it, but again, are tax dollars being weaponized against us and using the tax dollars politically as political bargaining chips. Oh, chips, there's another pun. I apologize. But we do need a lot more money towards our infrastructure. And, we just talked about water and sewer. We need a lot of replacements in our towns. Before we look at building new infrastructure, we need to make sure our towns have clean water. There's been a lot of pipes bursting, and that's a lot of money to repair. And to keep putting Band-Aids on it, we need to look at a bigger plan, and these formulas that nobody can understand does nobody any good.
Well, I move on to the next question, and this is regarding transportation. You know, it was always a highlight in the budget. Some feel that a rural district like the 100th Assembly District doesn't really benefit from allocations, for example, for the MTA, which is, you know, a substantial amount of money in every annual state budget. So what are your feelings about the need for public transportation within the region, within this 100th Assembly District?
Was that me
Camille?
first?
Yes, Camille.
Huge need for transportation. I mean, this is a bigger conversation. It's the reason a lot of people can't get to grocery stores. It's the reason a lot of people can't get to doctor's appointments. It's the reason a lot of people can't get to work. Transportation is lacking in Sullivan County. And while we want to believe that everybody can afford a car, the price of gas, the price of insurance, it's becoming out of reach for a lot of people. And you know what? Take a ride on 17 and pop some tires. That adds to the list of costs. So transportation, I do want to give some kudos to Sullivan County, though, for the Move Sullivan program. They're working on expanding it, and it has made a big difference to a lot of people. But when we look at the MTA, to see so much of our tax dollars flowing there, again, they forget that rural New York is here. And you know what? They just instituted congestion pricing for money to go towards the MTA. And you know what? Nobody up here uses the MTA. But you know what people do? Because there aren't specialists up here for medical appointments, a lot of people drive down to New York City. So now not only are they driving to New York City to see their medical specialists, they're going to get a whole new toll on them. So, yeah, we need to put less of our state tax dollars towards the MTA. And again, that's a New York City issue. So if they want to use the MTA, they need to charge their own people for it.
And Lou, your rebuttal, what is your feelings about the need for public transportation within the region, with what would be the 100th Assembly District?
Absolutely. So public transportation, again, in my wheelhouse, town of Wallkill, we have a very, very viable dial-a-bus program. When I took over as commissioner back in 2013, we had 3 buses a day. Now we run 6 buses a day. We run collaboratively with all places, the town of Warwick. We work with the town of Monroe. We have an administrator that administers 3 or 4 of our programs at one time. And what happens is, again, you have to bring the service to the people. And being able to do that, again, is all resource driven. Take the resources that you have or create new resources to allow people to be able to be transported properly. And that could be a small dial-a-bus system, things like that. The MTA, a much, much bigger issue. Again, in Orange County, we have the folks that are paying the income tax or the salary tax on the MTA. And again, I have to agree, we're not getting anything out of that. And that definitely needs to be readdressed, and there needs to be a good conversation on it.
Well, Lou, you get the next question, and talking a little bit about the environment, but really focusing also on some regulations that come down from the state. New York State has been accused of placing burdensome regulations on residents and industry. There are goals to only make available electric vehicles at some point in the state, as well as goals about a substantial fleet of electric school buses being made available. So the question is, do you feel these goals are attainable, and do you support them?
These goals are not obtainable. And again, personal history of these goals, specifically when it comes to EVs, electric vehicles. In the town of Wallkill back in 2016, we built a large solar field on our old town closed landfill, and we were going to get a big return on our investment. The minute we built the solar field, the local utility said, okay, we were going to use the solar credits against our non-metered accounts, street lighting, things like that. So the minute we built the solar field and we started building credits, the local utility says you no longer can use your solar credits towards non-metered accounts. Okay, the school bus industry. My best friend, one of my best friends, owns or runs now Mid-City Transit in the town of Wallkill. They have 4 electric school buses. He invested $250,000 in infrastructure upgrades just to charge them. Okay, at the end of the day, the buses weigh 3 times as much as an original bus. He can buy a school bus for $90,000. An electric school bus is $350,000. The mileage range on those are nowhere near what they need to be on a daily basis. We're setting goals that are just beyond unachievable and unobtainable. The fact that we think we're going to convert over to an all-electric transportation system, I'm just going to tell you straight up, it's not going to happen. We have experience with it. We've had people that have knocked on our doors. They want to sell the town EV vehicles. They want to sell us EV buses. They want us to get in this. And again, you're going down a rabbit hole that's going to be infrastructure driven, that you're not going to be able to provide the infrastructure. The electric companies can't provide the systems that you need and the size services you need to charge these vehicles. Definitely not achievable. Definitely needs to be readdressed. And again, a warm fuzzy that everybody sounds like it sounds real good. Well, it sounds real good until you go 150 miles on your trip, and then you have to stop for 2 hours and charge your car. Okay? Not achievable, no.
And Camille, same question regarding some of these issues, regulations on residents and industry, especially as pertains to electric vehicles. Some of the goals, do you feel they're attainable?
Not with the current system. So, I'm going to sound like a broken record again, that a lot of these policies are made without rural New Yorkers in mind. So I actually had a business owner this past year that called our office looking for help, and I was able to talk with him and NYSEG that he actually did purchase a electric charging station. And he invested a lot of money in that. And when he called NYSEG to have them run the lines out, not only did they say he would have to pay for all of the lines, which if anybody branched off of, he wouldn't get any reimbursement for. They also told him he had to pay for an entire new transfer station. So you know what? When New York is setting these goals, they need to put their money where their mouth is. That rural New York is here, and we have different infrastructure needs than New York City. So if they want to achieve these goals, they have to help us to achieve those, because you know what? Electric isn't cheap anymore, and we need some help up here.
Well, we're getting to the home stretch, as it were, in our debate here. So I'd like to turn to what I'd call social issues, some public safety issues, do a quick round of questions on some of those that have been talked about again and again, especially among members of the state and the local GOP, some even on the national level. So regarding Second Amendment rights, New York has some of the strictest gun laws in the country. Some still are in litigation, such as the handgun carry laws. So do you think they're working, and what's your position? And this question will start off with Lou.
Well, all you have to do is turn on the news to find out that they're not working, okay? Again, we're going to make laws that we can't enforce. Second Amendment. I've had a pistol permit since the day I turned 21. Well, maybe not the day, a couple months after I turned 21. So I've had a pistol permit for over 40 years. I have a Utah full carry permit. I feel you should have the right to defend yourself. And I felt that way, literally my entire adult life. What happens in New York, again, we go into session, we pass bills, they sound great, we're going to outlaw this, we're going to ban this, we're going to ban that. So once again, when you outlaw guns, the only people that are going to have guns are outlaws. And that's exactly what we see. We just saw it again just less than 24 hours ago. We saw it again with a gun crime in New York City. Last night I turned on the news at 11 o'clock. An 11-year-old girl and a 9-year-old girl are shot in New York City. They were definitely not shot with a legal gun. They were not. I am a big Second Amendment person. I feel you should have the right to defend yourself. I feel you have the right to defend your family, your home. And like I said, I have a full carry permit that I've had literally my entire adult life. And I just don't think that the laws they put out there are working. They're not. They sound good on paper. They sound good. They try to fit the narrative. But at the end of the day, once again, in the more rural communities of the 100th District, Orange County, Sullivan County, the majority of us, we're gun people. And we're responsible gun owners, and we take care of our weapons, and we store our weapons, and we secure our weapons. We like to be sportsmen and sportswomen, but we also like to defend our property and defend our families. And I feel that we should be able to do that. And we are going to overregulate and overlaw ourselves, if that's even a word, to the point where, once again, you're going to force good people out of the state of New York for another reason, is that they set a law that's just not achievable. So when it comes to the Second Amendment, I'm all in.
And Camille, regarding Second Amendment rights, do you think the current regulations in New York are working? What's your position?
Well, I think the regulations are infringing on our right. You said it, an American right to bear arms. And when I was 18, I heard an NRA speaker, and he said that the only reason his family survived the Holocaust was because they were armed. And there's a reason every American has the right to bear arms, protect their family, and protect their home. When it comes to sportsmen and women, visiting the Sullivan County League of Sportsmen and going down to the Tri-State Gun and Rod Club, I asked a lot of people about the new law that came in last year for background checks every time you purchase ammo. And, every single one of them told me the same thing. We just go to Pennsylvania now. Even the gun store owners told me they send people to Pennsylvania. So when people go out in hunting season, they're running low on ammunition. They're just going to Pennsylvania. So New York State has not only made a law that doesn't work, it's sending our business to our neighbors.
Well, I'll stick with you, Camille. The next question regarding bail reform, of course, public safety, it's a hot button issue. And also regarding public safety and the influx of migrants, particularly in New York City. So the overall question is, do you think the system should be revamped? Bail reform, should that be revamped? Is it time to just replace it? And what do you feel are some of the solutions to the migrant problem?
100%, I think bail reform needs to get repealed. We've tried to Swiss cheese it with Billy's Law, making an arson a non-bailable offense, and to give the judges the discretion to make that judgment call if somebody is a danger to society, to their families, to their neighbors. I worked on a piece with Sullivan West High School recently. They had a recent threat of violence towards the high school, and that person was arrested and released that same school day before school let out. So when we talk about keeping people safe, bail reform is a huge thing to detain people, and sometimes those people need help, whether they have mental issues or substance use issues. Most of the people incarcerated have substance use issues, and we see that all the time. Pertaining to the migrant issue, my dad was an FDN firefighter, and I remember 9/11 very well. ICE was established after 9/11 to be able to detain people that were a threat to our city, our state, and our country. And to have sanctuary city status block ICE from doing its job is ridiculous. It puts us all in danger. So between sanctuary city status and bail reform, we're putting our communities and our families and everybody we love in danger. So yes, it needs to get looked at again. Yes, we need to keep fighting for it. And you know what? I don't think it's going to change unless we flip some seats and take away this supermajority in Albany. We need to flip some seats from the Democratic majority so we can bring this conversation and get them to finally listen. Because you know what? It's okay that you guys made a mistake in passing it, but we need to fix it now.
And Lou, same question regarding bail reform. Should it be replaced, repealed, and migrants as well? The current situation, which is obviously also intertwined with public safety. What's your position?
100%. It needs to be addressed. It needs to be reformed. It needs to be repealed. It needs to be looked at all levels. In the town of Wallkill, I serve as the co-director of emergency management with our police chief. I spend hours with him talking about bail reform, talking about discovery, talking about basically taking a violent offense and turning it into a parking ticket. We need to get beyond that. We need to get beyond that. We need to do the right thing. We need to make sure that we can make these laws to the fact where we can put the authority back in a judge's hand and take it out of a politician's hand as to what's going to happen. The migrant crisis, that's a no-brainer. Again, lifelong Republican, it's not working. It's not working. Take a look at it. And then this year we're going to spend another $500 million on the migrant crisis in New York City. Absolutely not. We need to rein it in. We need to make it right. And as part of the assembly, I'm going to work as hard as I can to do all of that.
Well, and Lou, the next question on this round, we'll talk a little bit about women's health care, particularly as it pertains to abortion access. I should note that this primary is being held during Pride Month on a national level. Some within the LGBTQAI plus community point to Republicans as the party creating roadblocks to equal rights. So what do you say to those constituents?
Well, what I say is that I feel that everyone is entitled to live the life they want to live, and I think government ought to stay out of it, okay? There's a lot of things that go on today with, again, Republican ideals, Democratic ideals. What happens is we throw labels out there. And we shouldn't be throwing labels out there because, again, if in fact that you feel this doesn't affect you, it doesn't affect your family, it doesn't affect yourself, you're basically living in a box and you're not looking outside the box. What we need to do is we need to allow people to express what they want to express, allow people to live the way they want to live. But again, don't bring it to the door. Don't bring it to the schools. I heard somebody say the other night, a very good statement was, school teachers, your job is to teach reading, writing, and arithmetic, and my job as a parent is to teach values. Okay. Some of the things that are going on today, we see it happening, and it's just not good. It's not good at all. What we need to do is we need to be inclusive. We need to allow people to live the life they want to live. But again, live your life. Do what you want to do. You don't have to bring it to our front doorstep. You don't have to bring it into our schools. Allow parents to be parents. Allow adults to be adults. And just basically, do the right thing and allow people to, again, to do what they want to do. But again, don't put it in everybody's face. There's no reason for that. There really is not. Allow people to be who they want to be, and just, the ability of everyone to get along, as how cliche that sounds. But what we do is we put labels on people. We try to separate and divide from politics, whether it's Republican, Democrat, Independent, and that it fuels the fire. And I think what happens is the national narrative is they like to fuel the fire. So let's stop fueling the fire and let's solve some problems.
And Camille, your rebuttal, women's health care, abortion rights, and of course the LGBTQAI plus community. How do you speak to constituents regarding those issues? What are your positions?
Well, this has been a very divisive issue, and it's a very complicated issue. As a woman, I put that out there, I'm sure it's quite obvious. This is a deeper issue and needs to be a bigger conversation, and that's where in our state the conversation hasn't been happening, that it's one side making the policy and not bringing everybody to the table. So that's where we see that nationally, we see that in our state, that we're not having these conversations anymore, and it's a huge opportunity for education on the things we don't understand, the things we don't understand about each other, and there's been way too much, I'll term it othering, looking at other people as other than human. We're all human. We all have our minds and hearts, and a chance to have that bigger conversation and share with each other why we believe what we believe. I think that's been lacking, and I think we need to bring that back.
Well, and Camille, we're going to wrap up our final question in this segment, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that nationally, of course, and you'll be down ballot, should either one of you, Camille or Lou, be the Republican candidate in the November election. You'll be down ballot from Donald Trump, Absolutely. The presumptive Republican candidate for president. Do you believe Donald Trump should be the Republican nominee? Or if not, who should be the nominee at this point?
Well, right now he is the nominee. So no matter what I think, he is the nominee. And, with this court case this past week, whether or not you like Donald Trump, I think people across the spectrum saw that this was a political trial, politically motivated. And I must say that what I am for is to expedite the appeals process to get a fair trial. Every American deserves a fair trial. And I don't think anything holds more gravity in pushing for this acceleration of the appeals process than the presidential election of the United States. So, he is the nominee right now, and I will be down ballot. But I do want him to get a fair trial, just like I hope every American is able to have that. That, again, is an American right.
And Lou, your response, Donald Trump, presumptive Republican candidate, should he be the Republican nominee?
He is the Republican nominee, and I'm not going to dodge the issue. What I'm going to say is, similarly what was said, years ago, just look at your life. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? Absolutely not. Is Donald Trump the solution to everything that's going on in the country? Absolutely not. Is he the Republican nominee? Yes, he is. I'm going to be down ballot from him. Yes, I will be. Some of the things that have gone on and some of the things that, he's either said or, President Biden has said, what it comes down to, my own personal opinion on it is we have two individuals with no disrespect one who's 81 and one who's 77. This is the greatest country in the world. My theory is who's got the better bullpen, because we're going to be in the bullpen before we know it. So use a baseball analogy, we're going to the bullpen. My opinion is the Republicans have a better bullpen. I will support Donald Trump as the Republican nominee, and I'm okay being down ballot from him.
It's time now for our closing statements from our Republican Assembly candidates. And first, Lou Ingrassia Jr.
Well, thank you. Once again, I want to thank you for providing this platform. I want to thank you for providing this opportunity. And what I want to do is I want to talk directly to the people. I want to talk to the Republicans at this point. June 25th is the primary. Early voting, we know, starts on June 15th. I feel I'm the best candidate because I've got a lifetime of experience. I've got a lifetime of experience, number one, as a Republican. Number two, I've got a lifetime of experience as a family man. Number three, I've got a lifetime of experience as someone who has served in the public sector, 42-year volunteer fireman, been president of the County Firemen's Association, the County Fire Districts Association. I've got a lifetime of experience that I want to relate and I want to express and I want to lend to the New York State Assembly. I feel at the end of the day, both Camille and I, again, we've known each other for several years. I think we both have a lot of the same ideals. I think we both have a lot of the same goals in mind. But I feel that I'm the better candidate just based on my experience. I've paid school taxes for 30 years. I've paid property tax for 30 years. I've been in the arena. As again, in the town of Wallkill, my position as a DPW commissioner and the co-director of emergency management, I've spent a tremendous amount of time on the 50-yard line. I want to take that experience to Albany. I want to lend that experience to Albany. I feel I have a knack of talking with people. I have a knack of helping people. The New York State Assembly is the people's house. At the end of the day, we're going to spend probably 50% of our time on constituent services. I've spent 38 years of my life on constituent services. I find myself accessible. I'm transparent. I return phone calls. I return emails. And I know I have a lot to offer. And again, I feel like I am certainly in this race. I feel I am the best candidate. And I would certainly appreciate everybody's support on primary day. And please take advantage of early voting because it's going to make a big difference. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Lou. And Camille O'Brien, your closing statement, up to 2 minutes.
Thanks, Mike. So in this race, again, well, also, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank you guys for giving us this opportunity to speak to the voters and give everybody an opportunity to get to meet me and Lou and really see the difference. We're not just both Republicans, but we're fairly different Republicans. And speaking from a different set of experience, I come from a working class background. You know, I have a lot of experience in legislation and working in these offices, but I wasn't somebody that was given this job because of my name or coming from big money. I worked my way up and learned this because it matters to me, and I have a passion for this work. You know, even in the past, when I started early on as a staffer, I took second jobs as a caterer on weekends to be able to learn how to do this public service and make a difference. And you know what? With the situation we're in now, the unaffordable situation that we have in New York State, I understand the struggle of the working class person. I know what it's like to have two jobs. Heck, I have two jobs right now to make the ends meet. And something needs to change in our state. And with my experience, to be able to go in the very first day and know how to write a bill, know the hallways of Albany and how to get around, and how to actually make that change, I think that's what sets me aside from all of the candidates in this race, primary and general. And I'm looking forward to meeting everybody that I haven't met yet. Feel free to reach out to my campaign. I'd love to speak with you and hear about your concerns and what's important to you. And June 25th is our primary, and I hope you come out and support me. Thank you so much.
Well, I'd like to thank both of our Republican primary candidates, Camille O'Brien, Lou Ingrassia Jr. for the 100th Assembly District. Again, early voting begins next week on Saturday for the New York State primary that's scheduled for June 25th. And the Sullivan County Republican Committee has endorsed Camille O'Brien, while the Town of Wallkill and City of Middletown Republican Committees have endorsed Lou Ingrassia Jr. And that's going to wrap it up for Decision 2024. Again, thank you to both of our candidates for a wonderful, lively, civil discussion here. I'm Mike Sakell, News Director for Catskills News. Also, reminder, our news partner, Mid-Hudson News, which will provide you an opportunity to hear from our Republican Assembly candidates on a number of platforms. You'll be able to listen in on Catskills News Talk 92.5 and 94.9, as well as 1240 AM, plus MidHudsonNews.com, Mid-Hudson News YouTube channel, and the Catskills News podcast. Thank you very much, and have a great morning.
I'm Jim Sebastian for Mid-Hudson News and Catskills News.